Hi, this is Pete Lyons with Let's Play Salesforce, and in tonight's Tableau CRM video, we're going to be diving into new features for the Summer 21 release. And just a little bit to manage expectations, we will not be covering anything related to Data Prep 3.0 or Einstein Discovery. As I predict, we'll have another video with Bobby and another video with Tim as well. Those are already pending. So this will most likely come out before those videos are recorded, but we are going to dodge those features. So I'm going to go ahead, share my screen, hop off cam so you don't have to see my shaggy hair anymore. And we're going to dive into all of the spoilers that this new release has to offer. All right, so I'm logged into my trusty pre-release environment, and a couple of things that I'm seeing in the setup settings. The new one is disable recipe input dataset caching, and we can see the tooltip tells us that this disables recipe input dataset caching. My guess is this has something to do with performance optimizations related to previewing columns in Data Prep 3.0. I have no idea, and we'll find out in a subsequent video. So you gotta always save something for next time. We also have enable indexing of multi-value fields in Tableau CRM. So this is specifically last release. We had a new feature that kind of came out and then kind of rolled back to beta, and you know what's going on with it. And that is the MV to string function that is now available in SACL. So for anybody who's ever worked with a multi-value field, if you try to surface this in a table, you're only going to see the first value no matter how many values are selected, and it will always be in alphabetical order. So not the best end user experience. This does allow for us to see a delimited string instead in tables, and it's only accessible in SACL. So why the back and forth in the released and not released? What's going on with this feature? Well, it turns out that the story behind it is that they're not just flattening it as a text field. They are doing all kinds of crazy fancy indexing on it, and they're doing it the right way and not just the quick and hacky way. And apparently this caused a lot of performance issues in some initial pilot environments where they were digesting dozens and dozens of multi-select pick lists with hundreds of values in them. And they had to kind of throttle it back and reevaluate how to do it in the most scalable way. So we are seeing this feature back in setup, which means I would assume at least that they've made some strides in improving the performance on that. But we'll have to wait and find out. So next, this is going to be a huge one for anybody who has previous experience with other BI solutions or any kind of database management. And that is that we now have the ability to enable SQL, that's right, for Tableau CRM datasets, both in the Query API and in the Explorer. And we're going to get a chance to look at this in the Explorer tonight. Although as far as doing it with the API, we're going to call scope on that one and not cover it in tonight's video. If we hop into Analytics Studio, we do see that there has been a bit of a layout change. We're also noticing that these fonts are different. I'm not entirely sure why the fonts are different. My understanding is that they are doing some accessibility work. It may have something to do with that. Otherwise, I can't exactly tell you why the fonts are different. So there's a bit of a layout change here. We now have recents and favorites on a tabbed interface down at the bottom. Where does watch list fit into this? I have no idea. When I first turned watch list on in this org, it took me a while to get my org working again, and I never turned it back on. This is a pre-release environment that is several years old. So watch list is an awesome feature, but unfortunately, I can't really show you anything about it. Now, there is one other feature in this section that I did want to highlight that is net new, and I've got a lot of hopes for this one, and that is collection. So we see here that I've already taken the liberty of creating a collection of stamps, and you'll notice that the collection is empty. Now, the reason for this is because I don't collect stamps. Now, the actual reason for this is because I couldn't figure out how to add anything to it. Because when I was trying this before, the search didn't seem to be working for me. It's still not working for me. And I imagine that this is either a bug or something I'm doing wrong, but we will see it getting corrected eventually. But for now, if we go back to all items, for example, if I wanted to add my Blackjack app, maybe we can't do it with whole apps. Probably can't do it with whole apps. Let's see. Hot dog number 3. Yes, we can add to collection. And if we select that, we will see a list of the available collections or the ability to add new ones. And my hope is that this is going to be a feature that admins can configure and share out to other users. And I'm assuming based on this share button that that is going to be the case. So we're going to be able to choose the same setup, user, group, role, what is their role, viewer, editor, or manager, and do we want it pinned to home or not? So we can see it's shared with me. So what is this going to allow for you? Maybe you want to pick and choose a curated selection of assets that you want to surface more easily for end users instead of telling them, we'll go to Analytics Studio, pick this app, etc. You know, or maybe you want assets. So maybe you were using apps to do this before. Well, what if you want the same dashboard in multiple apps to share across different groups? Well, you'd have to clone out the dashboard. And then if you're running into a maintenance nightmare because now you got 50 different copies of the same dashboard and your boss says, oh, I love the dashboard, hate the color, change it. Now you got to change it in all those places. With this feature, it's going to be a lot more manageable to curate and distribute our different assets in a way that the admins can kind of govern. So then if we take a look at our dashboard editor, we're also seeing some layout changes to the buttons up here. Instead of our good old iBulb and floppy disk, we're now seeing preview and save, but the behavior is exactly the same. Present mode has now been changed from the easel symbol to the more ubiquitous full screen symbol. And our ... has been replaced with a drop down. So now I don't have to say, go to the ... in the top right anymore. But if we go back to edit, there's also a new button up here, which we are going to be covering in just a minute. But first, I wanted to draw attention to a little bit of another behavioral, not a behavioral change, but an aesthetic change that I'm seeing. So if I were to group this by stage on my DTC opportunity data set, this is an identical data set to what I have in my standard dev org. And I know because I stole the rows of data from there and ported it over to this org. So we're going to do a little, flicky side by side. And you tell me if you can see the difference. It's the fonts, the font changes. And yes, I know we've got the little 01 prefix here, but that's not really what's causing the difference. The fonts have all been changed. So we notice that stage is a little bit more bold. This is has a little more pop to it. And as we flick back and forth, I can tell you this is totally a distinctly different font. The width of the number 2, the shape of the number 4, the closure of the number 4 at the top in the new UI, and the gap in the number 4 on the old UI. Does it bother me? No. Are there people out there who are meticulous about pixel perfection who are going to get very fussy about this? Probably. They definitely exist. But honestly, don't be one of these fans. Don't be one of these fans. Just accept the change and move on with your day, because that's what I'm going to do. So moving on, and speaking of changes to font, this one's actually super, super cool. So let's bring our text widget out over here. And if I go to add text, I now have a semi-real text or semi-rich text editor. Now, the reason that I call it a semi-rich text editor is because there's not full feature parity with rich text. For example, we cannot add underline, code snippet, we can't put links into it, and we don't truly have bulleted lists. Now, you could fake a bulleted list through the use of UTF-8 characters and proper indentation. So I'm not super worried. You're going to be able to get everything that you need out of this. And the reason why I say this is because we have independent control over the font of different words, and we have independent control over the color of different words. We have a clear text, remove formatting option as well. We have strike through, we have underline, we have everything we want. So in my opinion, this is a really big improvement on the text widget, where to get this kind of functionality before, I believe that adding query data through tooltips did allow some degree of conditional formatting, but otherwise we were pretty much locked down to, if we wanted like different font weighting and different color and font sizes within a given text widget, we had to we had to have multiple text widgets all kind of mangled together, which doesn't work very well in the Flex Designer, even if you go to 50 columns in Superfine. So this is definitely a big improvement if you really want something to pop out a little bit more pronounced. So next thing that we're going to take a look at is some difference in copy paste behavior. Now, first, I'm going to show you this in the old org. So I'm going to hit done here. I'm going to drag this guy out of the page. I'm going to show you the old copy paste behavior. The old copy paste was a clone. And let me just real quick illustrate the core problem that they're trying to solve here. In most applications, copy and paste are distinctly separate operations. In analytics, they are not. We only have a clone feature. So if I copy the widget, it's automatically going to paste that widget as well. I don't truly have it saved to my clipboard. I would have to keep copying it again and again. The native behavior is that it's going to appear on the first unused row within the same column as the widget that was copied. Now, hypothetically, let's say that, I've got my company trending and, I decide that I really like this waterfall that's not rendering right now. And so I explore that out. Oh, I haven't loaded my data set in a million years. Okay, not editing that part out. You get to live with it. So let's say that I had two different dashboards. So I got this guy, and we're going to create a new dashboard over here. And, we'll pretend that, I love this dashboard very dearly, and it's my perfect one source of truth. And I want to be able to move this chart that I really, really like onto this dashboard. What I would have to do is first, I would have to explore this out. And then I need to make sure that the destination dashboard is the rightmost open dashboard to the left of the current subtab, and then clip it to the designer. And then I have to go to my other dashboard, look through a million different steps to find the one that's got the right name, and then I can drag it onto the page. Now, for somebody like me who does this sort of stuff all the time, it's not that big of a deal. You just get used to it. It becomes part of your muscle memory. But it's very counterintuitive for users who are not familiar with this system. So let's take a look at the new behavior. Well, first, I don't have that clone button anymore. I now have a copy button, which simply looks like a blank clipboard. So now this is copied to my clipboard. And if I were to go back to home and hit create, oh, I didn't call it out. I'm just gonna, sorry, roll back. I do wanna also draw attention to the fact that when I load my home page, instead of getting a load spinner, we get these grayed out boxes that have a little bit of color animation to them. And I feel that that's just a consistency element, because we see that in Lightning, and we see that in the mobile app. But back to what we were talking about, if I hit create now and I go to dashboard and I got a new dashboard, now I just have this paste button, which was previously grayed out when there was nothing on my clipboard, but now I can just paste it in. And the behavior is that it will try to go to where it was and not where we put it. So now if I drag this down and I copy it again, I believe it will still go to the top here, because the behavior is going to be that it attempts to preserve the column position, but will still go to the first unused row. And we do see that that is the case, even though the widget that I just copied was lower. So now what happens if I put it here? If I copy this now, nope, that's our advanced editor. If I copy this now and I come over to here, my expectation is that it's going to start right about here, because it's going to start in the same column on the first unused row. So let's see what happens. And the system works. We made a prediction and it came true. So I do think that this is a huge quality of life enhancement, and it's going to make onboarding new dashboard designers a lot easier, because this is much more in line with the paradigms of other utilities that have copy and paste. What would I like to see, in classic Pete? I get all the new feature release, new release features, and I want to see more and more and more. What I would like to see in the future is the ability to select the actual location at which it's going to paste. But the problem is, in the right click's just not a thing. So I don't really know how they would achieve that. But that we'll see. We'll see what we get. So our next feature that we're going to take a look at has to do with the blended query UI, and this one is a huge one for me. I literally had a use case that I could not solve without SACWL, because this feature was missing just last week. And I'm very glad to see this coming. So if I add a second data set to this, we've had this for a while now, that, we can, maybe pick the second data set instead of having the first one there. So more DTC opportunities. I can do calculated columns across them. This was something that came as a subsequent element in a subsequent release to the original blended query UI, was the ability to have these calculated columns. And that's super critical to me. I mean, if one is a data set of opportunities and one's a data set of quotas, I'm probably going to want to calculate a percent to goal and not do it in SACWL. Well, we do have that functionality. We've had it for a bit now. But what we did not have was the compare table feature to independently filter individual columns. So now we see that we do have this add a filter button that we're going to be able to apply independent filtration to our different columns. And that is a huge win for me. So another feature that we did talk about briefly earlier, but now we can dive into a little bit more. If we hop over into query mode, first thing I'm noticing is new color coding, new font. And I'm definitely okay with it in this case because this is a lot easier for me to see and distinguish and read than the old color scheme. So I am in favor of this one. But again, my opinions on font and styling mean absolutely nothing because for me, it's function first, aesthetics second. So does it allow you to do the work in a more efficient way, or does it not cause the work to become more difficult? Then I'm fine with the change. And it never matters to me. You want to change that Salesforce blue to a green. I don't really care as long as it doesn't interfere with my ability to do my job. And none of the font changes that we've seen so far do that. With the text widget, we're seeing improvement. And in the Sackwell editor, I will say this is a lot crispier and easier for me to read. So I'm definitely liking this change. But I now have the ability to switch to SQL mode. Now, we already have a co-group query here with a projection to a derived, to 3 different derived measures and a limit statement. When I switch to SQL mode, unfortunately, all that's going to be bombed, but that's all right. There's a lot that you get out of this. For one, you're now going to be able to leverage alternative skill sets. It's going to open up the pool of available resources that can do tab CRM development to a broader audience of people who have more traditional databasing experience. And check this out. So if I just start typing I've got all of my fields on here. Hey, why don't we have this in the Sackwell side of the editor? Could we maybe have this? I don't know. It's probably coming from some publicly available library, and that's why we're getting like this value add here. But we also have all of our different functions. And when we go ABS, it automatically drops it in, and we can just pop in our field name. So if I start typing A again, we can do the absolute value of amount. For those of you who have opportunities with negative amounts for some reason, that is a thing, and I have seen it. So we've got a very nice SQL editor. I don't frankly know if there are any limitations or functional gaps between what you can do in SQL and what you can do in this editor. I also can't tell you what flavor it is, be that, I'm not going to say the brands, but we know that there's a few different flavors of SQL out there that have their subtleties and their differences. I'm not an SQL guy, so I can't really tell you. But if you are, it's here. And I know that there are a lot of my clients that really, really, really wanted to see this. Now we're going to back out just a little bit. And we're approaching the end of the video here. So I'm going to start to coast down, throttle back, roll back all of our changes. We're going to keep going. Okay, now we're back down to a single data set. This is our default query. So we're going to flip over into compare table mode. Now, what I am seeing here is that if we go to add a formula, which is so much easier than it used to be, we have all of these functions. And first, before we even talk about the new stuff, I want to call out what an amazing feature the compare table is, especially since it's been enhanced with the function and fields dropdown. So first, we've got all of these out-of-the-box windowing functions that we can do, which are comparable to like what you can do with compute relative. Basically, we're going to iterate over rows and return values based on where things are within that bigger picture. Period over period, rank within group, change from previous. Lots of great stuff that we can do out of the box, including time series. But we also have every function under the sun that is available in Sackwell at our fingertips. Are all of them going to work for you? Maybe not. But one awesome feature that we can do with this, for example, is we can have a non-grouped dimension in a grouped query for use in a tooltip by using the first function. And that's something that we used to have to do with Sackwell. And that's for use cases like if you want to show chatter profile pics in a gauge widget. I believe, I'm not positive, I believe that this would facilitate that. Now, as I was looking at this, though, I noticed that the ASCII function popped up. So last release, we got a bunch of new functions, most of them around math. So sine, cosine, tangent, arccosine, etc. All these different trigonometry and math functions. But we also got ASCII and char, which in my opinion should be pronounced char because it's like the first 4 letters of character. I honestly don't know. I also know that it's pronounced epoch, and I choose to say epic. So I don't care. I'm going to call it the char function. You tell me if I'm wrong. But we do still have, my friend, the slingshot bug. It stayed with us. We get to keep that guy, and it is fun. And I noticed the bottom of the G is still cut off. But the ASCII and the char function allow us to convert back and forth between UTF-8 numerical references to characters and the actual characters themselves. There are use cases for this if you've got, foreign languages or if you've ever seen that question mark in a diamond because you loaded a CSV file wrong. There's definitely use cases for that. But then I started to scroll down through here and I noticed some powerful net new ones. And I'm not going to go into exhaustive, in-depth analysis of all of them, but I am seeing we have epic day and epic second, which is going to give us easier ways to convert our date fields back into numbers. This is a quality of life enhancement, in my opinion, because we already kind of have this functionality, but this is going to make it a little bit easier. So these are net new SACL functions that we have. And then wait for it. If I can just, oh, there we go. We've got all kinds of fiscal date functions. Lots of fiscal date functions. I'm loving it. So then we're going to end on a fun one. And this is the only one of these new SACL functions that I'm going to dive into. If you want to know what they all are, either check the release notes or go and explore it for yourself. But this is one that I wanted to take a look at. So the pi function. Who out there knows what pi is? Everybody. Yeah. Now, pi, for your average, 10-year-old, is 3.14. And that's fine. We don't have to know pi in depth. You can call me Pete. But my actual name is not Pete. It's Peter Thomas Lyons. And there's other identifiers that are used to identify me as distinct from any other possible Peter Thomas Lyons that's out there. My friends call me Pete. So this is pi. You can call it 3.14. But if you wanted to be a little bit more precise and actually do quality math with it, we are going to need to go to a slightly higher precision. So how high of a precision does it actually go to? Well, first, the reason that we're seeing 3.14 is because this is just the default behavior for numerical formatting in a compare table. So let's see what's actually hidden under this number. Now, I imagine this is way more than is actually going to render. So we hit Donezo and we apply it. 3.1415926535897993. Go and ask your Alexa what pi is to the 20th digit, and let's see how accurate that is. But this is not actually to the 20th digit. We are currently seeing a total of, I believe, 16 numerical characters here, even though in the custom format, I added significantly more than that. Is this a limitation of how far the system is calculating pi? Or is this just the UI trying to do what the UI is trying to do? So let's have a look-see. So I'm going to multiply this by 10,000. And this alone is not going to get us what we want, but I do want to demonstrate what we're doing here. So what we're doing is we're moving that decimal to the right. Now, we do see that it did add one more character, a 2. So including the decimal, we now have 18 characters, which is where I think that initial limit is coming from. 18 characters, including the decimal. I think that this is just how the system is trying to render it, because we actually have a character limit of 18 characters in a number field, but the first number must have an absolute value below 3-ish, or you're going to experience numerical overflow because of the amount of actual physical memory used to store a number. There's a lot of different checks to prevent for numerical overflow. There's also some sneaky ways that you can get around it. And there are certain circumstances where 19 character numbers may not actually cause numeric overflow. For more information on that, if you want to get super nerdy and super technical, it's actually surprisingly well documented. But back to the point here, how far does it calculate pi? Because obviously it's not going to be infinite. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract from that 31415. And the reason why is because I want to remove characters from the left of the decimal to free them up for the right of the decimal to see how much further it goes. And I clearly must have screwed something up. What did I screw up here? Let's roll it back. So times 10K. And we got 31415. Make sure that it's not our order of operations minus 31415. And when I screw up and I leave it in the video, it's not lazy editing. I know it's in there. I just don't mind. I like keeping it real. So there we go. 3.1415926. That's as far as I personally memorize it. 53598,793 is where we previously left off. We initially got it to that 9, and then we were able to get a 2, I believe. Now it's a 3, something like that. And then we get 116. Now, I've actually tried to take this a little bit further, and it gets kind of weird. So like it was not like 932, and I think it was rounding the 116 up. But as I was experimenting with this last night and trying to take it a little bit further, I was getting odd, weird results when I got this far down the rabbit hole. And I think that it's because it's actually a function and it's not storing it as like a hard-coded value. So I would argue that this is certainly accurate enough for whatever application of pi that you are going to have. As long as, for me, if it can calculate pi more than I can recite, which, full honesty, off the top of my head, I know 3.1415926. That's how far I memorize it. I don't care to memorize it any further because I can look it up. If it goes further than that, it's probably good enough for whatever I am going to need it for. I just thought that this would make a fun little thought experiment to close out the video with. So with that said, this is certainly not all the new functionality that we have in summer 21. Also, I've been seeing some really cool stuff coming out for flows as well, but that's not within the scope of my channel. Similarly, not within scope of this video is anything related to Data Prep 3.0 or Einstein Discovery. So please tune into subsequent videos that will be covering those features along with the product team who's going to be joining us. And if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, tell a friend, and as always, thanks for watching.